Hello, everybody. I'm Professor Christopher Corton, and I'm going to be leading you in this English language course, Upper Intermediate. Over the next 3 months, you're going to improve your speaking, your pronunciation, your vocabulary, and you'll have a better understanding of the grammar. And I will introduce the course a little bit this time in this first meeting. We're going to be using a PDF from the English file, which I think these lessons will be based on them because I feel it's one of the best, if not the best book in the business, in the industry. Very interesting, very helpful. And I'm going to add my own information, my own views, insights into each of these lessons. So what are we going to focus on? We're not actually going to focus on reading, which is the first section in this chapter, if you notice. Now, just so you understand how this works, we're going to focus on the grammar aspects of how to form questions. So they're always going to be at the top. You can see what the emphasis is. We're going to try to work out the meaning of words from the context. And here are some, we'll talk about clues on how to do that. And then pronunciation, you're going to learn how to inflect your voice to show interest. So we are not focusing on reading because this is a pretty intensive course already, and people tend to get behind if they have to do it. So it's obviously an optional component if you have time to do it, but I want to suggest that you stay current with the lessons. We're going to focus, as I mentioned, on speaking, vocabulary, grammar, and pronunciation. Even if you don't finish every part of the homework, try to stay on top of things. Try to stay current with each homework assignment, because what I found and what I think people found out who took the course last time, if you're consistent, you improve a lot more. And so the greatest progress I saw were from those who were relatively consistent with the homework and attending the lives. All right, and the homework is going to be actually in the PDF file, and just so you know how it works, at the very end are the answers and also the transcript from all the audio files, because we're going to be working with audio files. You're going to listen not only to my voice and my accent, but a whole host of others, mainly British, but not only. And if you don't understand something, you can always come back here and look at what the meaning is. And then, of course, in the gray boxes, those are the answers to the exercises. So I whited out everything else to make it really easy to see. So you can see the transcription, the dialogue, and then the answers. All right, so that's a little bit of how it works. So let's go through it. We're going to skip, as I mentioned, reading and speaking, although we'll talk a little bit about this box here, politely refusing to answer a question. How do we do that in English? We have a lot of ways to do it. Sometimes you just don't say anything. That could be a bit rude. You could say, I'd prefer, you see right here, I'd prefer not to say, I'd prefer not to answer. I'd prefer not to talk about it. 3 ways you can politely but firmly get out of that conversation. You can also say, I'd rather not answer that if you don't mind. That sounds like it's something for the courtroom, that you don't want to answer something because it might incriminate you. Incriminate means if you say something, you could render yourself guilty. Yeah, this is a nice word, incriminate. So oftentimes we don't answer questions in the courtroom, not that we've been there, but we wouldn't answer a question if it will incriminate us, if it will cause us to be found guilty of something. All right. Now let's move to page 2, because we're not going to, I actually want to look at this a little bit. We're going to look at the grammar formation of questions, and we'll look at both of these here for just a second. So let's look here. This chapter is principally about, in the grammar at least, forming questions. How do we form questions? Now, obviously, at the upper intermediate level, you know how to form questions. You know that you reverse the word order of the subject and verb to form a question. But we're going to go into a little bit more advanced ideas, and we're going to review just a little bit some of these things that you might have forgotten along the way. So here we have answer questions with a partner below. You can do that, but I'm going to help you with the first one because I don't think it's so easy. So I've replicated this right in another file. I'll show you in a minute, but let's just look at it. Which question is an example of a question which ends with a preposition, a subject question where there is no auxiliary verb, a question which uses a negative auxiliary verb, and an indirect question? Now you can pause the recording now if you want to think about those and come up with your own answers, because I'm going to move and talk about them in just a second. So here we go. Let's look at these. A question which ends with a preposition. What are you thinking about? What are you talking about? That's some inflection. What are you talking about? If I use it in that context, what am I saying? What are you talking about? It means, I think you're crazy. It could mean that. You don't agree with whatever they're saying. So you can ask a question and state your opinion at the same time based on the tone of voice, how you are emphasizing the certain words in the question. So this is for those who don't remember, this is a preposition about, and there are a lot of prepositions in English: in, on, for, about, with, at, many. And we'll move on to the next one, a subject question where there is no auxiliary verb. Who broke the vase? Who is the subject question. There's no auxiliary verb. What's an auxiliary verb? Well, generally do or did. We're going to talk about that in just a second. A question which uses a negative auxiliary verb. We have to be. I mentioned do, but we also have is or to be. Isn't she coming to the party? That's a negative auxiliary verb, isn't. And then an indirect question. Could you tell me where the nearest pharmacy is? We're going to look at indirect questions. Here's the direct question, but we have to invert the order. Where is the nearest pharmacy? But if we want to be a little bit more polite and we're asking a stranger on the street, an indirect question is your new friend. Could you tell me where the nearest pharmacy is? So the word order remains as it is in standard sentences. Now, let's talk about auxiliary verbs. Let's look at do just for a second, just to sort of discuss a word that we probably have never focused on or talked about very much, except when you're forming questions. But let's look at some of the other functions of do. So as an auxiliary verb, a helping verb, we have them here. Do you like chocolate? Like, do you like? So do goes with almost all the verbs except is. Is or the to be verb is one of them, and you don't use it with certain question words. We're going to look at that in a minute. Here we have it in negative. I do not want any. I do understand what you're saying. That's for emphasis. So the standard sentence is I understand what you're saying, but the standard sentence, if you want to emphasize it, you can say I do understand what you're saying, and that lets people know, okay, I don't need to repeat it anymore. He got me. He understands. It can function as a main verb, not just an auxiliary verb. I did my homework. She does her chores every day. Chores are those tasks around the house, cleaning mainly, sometimes cooking, ironing, doing the laundry. When is laundry day at your house? I just did the laundry. So today was laundry day for me. So those are the chores. I did them this morning very dutifully. All right. Now we're going to, you can use it as a substitution for a different word. Do can stand for a different word. I like to swim and my sister does too. Does here stands for likes to swim. And then you have an elliptical verb. It can replace an entire phrase or clause. So do now takes a lot more meaning in it. Who wants ice cream? I do. I want ice cream. I do. All right. So that's enough about do. Much to do about do. Here we go. If you want to answer these questions, you can. Again, they're dealing with questions, so you've got the answer below. Try to figure out the question. Maybe number one we can do together. What do you think? I see 8 years ago, so I'm guessing when. When were you the happiest? Oh, that's a question we could all ask ourselves. Was there a time in your life when you were the happiest? Hopefully it's now. But if not, when and why? 2 WH questions, when and why. These are some great ones. Now we're going to be getting speaking partners. You're going to meet people in the group, and you're going to have conversations to practice some of these things. You're also going to talk to me. I'm going to have you do recordings. We're going to have one today. And in fact, maybe we can do it now. So your homework assignment, you're going to find a speaking partner when we go live this weekend, but you're also going to send me an audio message on Instagram, and that's your homework. 1 to 2 minutes, answer one of these questions. Send me it. I know it might not be comfortable. I know you might not speak perfectly, or you have a lot of excuses why not to send it, but we start improving by speaking. This course is going to emphasize speaking. So we're going to have a speaking component of the homework every time. Obviously, during the live, we're going to be talking. I'm going to encourage you to hook up with a person on the course to be a speaking partner with them, or you can have more than one, and practice the vocabulary and grammar in action, actually talking. Let's go to the grammar bank. The grammar bank is here on the question formation. Now, sometimes I'm going to send you these audio files. You're going to see them underneath the video on the platform. Other times, like now, I'm going to be your audio file. So here's how this works. And I think it's very clear. Number one are examples. And then the number one down below is the grammar rule. Some of the grammar rules are more important than others. So I won't go through all of them because I don't think some of them are either important or necessary. You're free to go through them on your own. How long have you been waiting? Now, if you want to repeat after me to improve your accent or pronunciation, you can go ahead and do that. How many children does your sister have? Should we buy her a present? All right, so if we move to number 2, so that's a standard sort of, you can see here, we're using auxiliary verbs, be and have, with modal verbs, should and must. All right. So we have 2 different types of sort of questions. We can do it with auxiliary or with modal verbs, 2 options here. All right, now number 2, and you notice here, number 2, we use negative questions to show surprise. Why didn't you like the film? I liked it. That's what it probably says. I liked it. Why didn't you like the film? Isn't this a beautiful place? You obviously think it is because you asked the question. Don't you have to be at school today? All right, and if we go below, interesting about number 3, talk about. What are you talking about? And that can be quite dramatic, confrontational even. Confrontational is when you confront someone, and sometimes in an argument, or an argument ensues. Ensues, E-N-S-U-E-S. Ensues means it follows, an argument follows. All right, here we have, look at below here. I'm thinking, number 3 in the directions, what about? So you can have 2 words form a question. What about? You can also say what? You wouldn't say that here, what, but you can say, what about? What were you thinking about? That's the full question, but if we shorten it, we can say, what about? Or, about what? About what? In America, We normally would say maybe about what, and I think Brits would probably say what about more than the Americans would. All right, number 4, who lives in that house? How many people follow you on Twitter? So when we have these who, what, and which, we don't use do or did. So who replaces the auxiliary verb. Who wrote this, not who did write this. We don't say that. So if you sometimes say that, we have to remove that from your vocabulary. Now, the indirect questions can be a little bit tricky because it's a question, but the word order is not reversed as it is with standard questions. The word order remains as it is, as if you're speaking a positive sentence, you know, an imperative. Or so, could you tell me what time the shop next door opens? Here's another one that's very, very common. Could you tell me what time it is? Now, a lot of people say, could you tell me what time is it? No, they're thinking about the normal verb, but in the indirect questions, you keep the word order the same. So could you tell me what time it is? Not what time is it? All right. Could you tell me what time it is? Now, if you make it direct, then obviously you say, what time is it? But indirect, could you tell me what time it is? So this right here, could you tell me, do you know of, would you mind? These are all indirect, these signal indirect questions. So what I would recommend you do is with your speaking partner, go ahead and ask a question for each of these below. You see them right here. I've marked them. So, do you know what time it is? Do you think I could go to? Do you remember our meeting in Hawaii 3 years ago? Ooh, sounds nice. Would you mind telling me where the nearest pharmacy is? Now, we say pharmacy in the US, and in Britain, they say the chemist. Or Boots. Boots is the largest chemist, so sometimes they just ask for Boots. All right, it's like the McDonald's of pharmacies in England. By the way, I'm going to be teaching you both American and British forms. I'm from the US, but I studied in England, and I'm very familiar with both styles. So I'm going to give you a hybrid account of English, British and American. I think it's very interesting and helpful as opposed to just teaching one style. All right, we have indirect questions. The word order we've already talked about. Now, other expressions followed by the word order of indirect questions. I wonder why they didn't come. You would say, why didn't they come? That's a standard question, but I wonder why they didn't come. I'm not sure what time it starts. I can't remember where I left my bag or my phone. Actually, I left my cable, my computer cord at the coffee shop. And I realized it 2 hours later. It's a coffee shop in a busy mall. And I walked back and I'm thinking, what are the odds that it's going to be there? 50-50, I thought, because it's just 2 hours, but it was there. I got very lucky. All right. I'd like to know what time you're coming home. And so here we have these are good just to memorize, actually, so that you know these word orders aren't adjusted with the standard questions. They keep the same structure, subject, verb, as regular sentences. All right. You've got homework down below right here, the answers to which are in these the teacher's guide, actually, is what this is. And so you'll just have to look for the box, and you'll see it probably way at the end, I imagine. I think it's right down below. All right, so that is homework for you, 1A and B. Now we're going to go back up and talk about a few more other things. Pronunciation, I think, is really interesting. Excuse me. Pronunciation here, showing interest. Now here's where we will rely on the audio files. You will have these audio files underneath the video lesson for you to listen to, preferably not to download, just to listen. because they're technically copyrighted. So we don't want to be, that's why I'm not sending you everything, just a part of it, because we have copyright responsibilities. And as a teacher, I can show you this material, but I can't give it to you. All right, reacting to what someone says. When you ask someone a question, these are quite interesting, like, oh, really? I'm sorry. Oh, no. Wow, me too. How interesting. Americans say this a lot. How interesting. Follow-up questions. Why is that? Why do you say that? Why do you say that? Trying to understand someone's thinking. These are very common questions. And let me tell you what, another reason I love this book. It gives examples that are very commonly heard or experienced or witnessed or spoken in English. They don't give outliers, they give really common examples. And I love that. I think that's a very good teaching methodology. For some of you who are going to be teachers later, or who are teachers, follow this principle. Give examples that students are likely to encounter in real life. All right, reading and vocabulary, we have more. We'll do some vocabulary. I'm going to let you do that. It's going to be with the job seekers. These we have here, you can see it's not very clear, but they're right here. They are compound, and some of these compound nouns or adjectives. Here's a compound adjective, good-natured. Job seekers is a compound plural noun. And you're going to try to understand meaning. If you want to do this, if you have time, it's a vocabulary exercise, but it's couched within a reading exercise, which we're technically not going to focus on. Now, this is very interesting. This box here that I just want to share very briefly. They give 4 tips on how to guess the meaning of a word without knowing that word's meaning ahead of time. So the context, the words around it, probably it means this. What part of speech is the word? Is it a verb or an adjective? Is it similar to another word in English? Is it similar to a word in your language? Sometimes these can provide interesting clues. Now, this is one thing I don't agree with the book on. If you can't work out the meaning, ignore it. I think you should ignore that suggestion, not ignore the word you don't know. Obviously, if it's a detailed word, it's probably not important. But if it's a word that's central to an important sentence in the article, then you probably need to know what that word means. And I don't think there's anything wrong with looking up words in the dictionary. I do it all the time. We don't want to impede our reading and listening by looking up every single word, but I think sometimes it's important. All right, now look at these genuine interview questions. So I told you before you could make an audio recording of one of those earlier questions above here. But instead, if you want to do one of these, you're welcome to do it. These are very interesting actual questions in an interview. And I think the answers could be quite interesting. Definitely work with a speaking partner on these. Ask each other some of these questions. And then listening, you're going to do the listening, very important. Listening and pronunciation, we have very capable, very good audio files, and you're going to use that here. So I will not get in the way. The speaking will come a bit later. If you want to talk to your speaking partner and have more questions, then you can do that. Actually, later, we'll have you speak to me on these. But for the moment, so we'll talk about these questions in the live, actually. So we will discuss these. All right, that's your homework. You've got a lot to do. Very nice to meet you. I'm looking forward to meeting you all personally in the live, and looking forward to working with you over the next 3 months. Take care and speak soon. Bye-bye.